everyone, it's Tanya here and welcome back to my channel. I've always loved this vintage housecoat that I have, where the maker has used the stripes to great dramatic effect here by pleating. And recently I've seen online lots of people are making lovely dresses using just pleating, just taking rectangles of fabric and using pleating to create shape in a garment. So I thought I would have a go. I've had this fabric in my stash for, it must be the best part of 10 years, and I have looked at it from time to time and thought, what should I use that for? But nothing ever felt quite right. And then I just suddenly thought, oh, I know what I can do. So let me show you how I did it. This is a vintage Kanga made by the Sunguratex factory in Salaam in Tanzania. It would be used as clothing or household textiles. I was planning to make a strappy sundress, so the first thing I did was to cut off a strip for the straps. I did this on both sides. I then cut the remaining fabric in half to make up the back and front of the dress. So that was my starting point, 2 large rectangles and 2 strips of fabric. I overlocked the various pieces, and it was at this point the provenance came to light. It was a really very exciting moment. I grew up in various parts of Africa, and it still has a large part of my heart. I folded the strips of fabric in half and then half again to create 4 pieces which would become the straps. I ended up with 8 pieces which I sewed in pairs to become little tubes which I turned inside out to make the straps. At this point I turned my attention to the 2 rectangles, sewing them together with side seams to create one big tube. I measured around my full bust and upper bust, so I would know what measurements I was working towards. I figured out that I could make the width of the finished dress approximately half of the width of the tube, so I measured 4 centimetres, 6 centimetres and 8 centimetres and pinned accordingly. Then I pulled over the 4 centimetre to meet the 8 centimetre, with the 6 centimetre being the halfway point between the 2 measurements. This action created a pleat, which I pinned in place. I repeated this process all the way around. I decided it may be wise to tack the pleats in place so I didn't stab myself when trying the dress on. I settled upon about 7.5 inches of depth for the pleats. I then took it to the sewing machine and sewed the pleats in properly. I have a memory of being in an airport somewhere in Africa in about 74 or 75. There was a woman in a maxi skirt made of African fabric. She had long hair slightly hidden under a kerchief, and I remember staring at her in that way that children do. I thought she looked so stylish, and all the time I was sewing this dress, I thought of her. Anyway, back to 2025 and this dress. When I tried it on, I realised that it was way too big, so I decided to unpick the seams and refit it with a view to taking some fullness out at the sides. So once again I had 2 rectangles, but this time already pleated. If I make this dress again, I would pleat the fabric before sewing the side seams together. So anyway, I sewed the side seams together again at what I thought was a better measurement, and then cut off the excess fabric. I really liked the hand-stitched hem, so I decided to keep it the same. I just needed to re-sew it where I had unpicked, and I used the same original thread. Now I was ready to pin the straps into place on the bodice. I used some of that excess fabric I had cut away for facings. The straps were sandwiched between the outer dress and the facings.
As always, I understitched to prevent the facing showing on the outside. Because this dress is identical on the back and the front, I sewed a label in so I know which is the back when I'm putting it on. And here it is. I absolutely love how it's turned out. It's so easy to throw on, so cool and light. And I feel somehow as though I've crystallised that memory from 50 years ago of the mysterious lady in the airport. I used up the remaining strip of fabric to make a hair scarf, come necklace, come neckerchief, making this a zero waste project, which I was really happy about. What would you use this tie for? Any thoughts?
I've got a few sort of lessons that I think I learned through this project. One is that every single project represents a different challenge and that you learn something through doing it. Two, it's really good sometimes to not be a perfectionist, to work things out as you're going along and just have fun doing it. And three, that fabric was just waiting for that project. So it's kind of made me think, oh, don't stress about the fabric that's in your stash. One day, exactly the right thing will come to mind and it will get used up. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it might have inspired you to give it a whirl. Try a pleating project, see what you come up with. Anyway, thank you for watching and I hope to see you next time. Bye.